the lecture number 12. In the previous lecture we ended with the list of conditions for the origin of citta. We discussed about the definitions of Nāma, definitions of viññāna, citta, viññāna, citta, which are synonymous terms for consciousness, Pali terms, and then the conditions for the origin of citta. In the conditions, we paid attention at the anantara, samanantara, paccaya forces, and also about the object. Then another conditions, there are another two types of conditions that are necessary for the arising of citta. That is, the first is the certain cetasikas, and the next one is the base in the five panchavokara realms. So page 4.10 is about the certain cetasikas, and 4.11 in the last page we find the bases. So this lecture is dedicated only to explain how certain cetasikas are supportive for the arising of citta, and also the influence, the needing of a base, rupa, in the panchavokara realm for the arising of citta. So in terms of mental concomitants, cetasikas, we go to the paragraph number 4.10. As mentioned under the fundamentals 4.5 and 4.6, consciousness always associates mental factors, and among the 52 mental states, some are essential in the arising of all types of cittas. So some I have mentioned that essential in all types of cittas. According to the Abhidhamma point of view, whatever mental state happens in a certain citta supports for the arising of citta in terms of sahajata, anyamanya, paccaya forces, paccaya abilities. But there are some cetasikas which call the universal cetasikas, which are necessary for all cittas to occur. So it is important for us to find out how they are supportive, why they are essential for every citta. So at the same time, this will be an explanation about the cetasikas. Because the mentalities, it's very difficult to exclusively talk about citta and cetasikas, bringing them apart, because they, in the practicality, they always exist together. So it's very difficult to discuss about them, completely ignoring the other part. So therefore, even the handout is termed as the consciousness. These few pages are exclusively about the cetasikas, but it will have a specific objective to show how these cetasikas are related to every citta for the occurring of each and every citta. So that is the purpose. But at the same time, it will be an information about the cetasikas. So when it comes to the handout of cetasikas, I will be omitting certain parts which have been already explained in the handout for the consciousness. So always keep in mind, that's why in the beginning I mentioned these 6 lectures, we are in the second lecture now regarding the mentalities. The first handout will be divided into 4 sections. Mentality part 1, consciousness, cetasikas means mental factors, and the mentality part 2. So we always should take the mental sphere as one subject, and then in that we discuss about citta cetasikas accordingly. So there are 7 cetasikas that are necessary for all the cittas to happen. What are these 7? We call it phassa, vedanā, saññā, cetanā. Then we have ekaggatā, jīvitindriya, manasikāra. Jīvitindriya, manasikāra. So while explaining the Vibhanga Sutta about the Paticcasamuppada, Buddha, when he defined the Nāma Rupa Viññāna Paccaya Nāma Rupam, Nāma, he was exclusively referring to certain cetasikas. So this sutta shows that he was mentioning that there are few cetasikas are exclusive to are found in all the cittas, not exclusive, are found in all the cittas that happen. So the cetasikas he mentioned was phassa, vedanā, saññā, cetanā, and manasikāra. These are the 5 cetasikas that you find in the Vibhanga Sutta of the Paticcasamuppada, explaining the Paticcasamuppada. Ekaggatā, it can be found in, especially Buddha addressed this in jhanas.
This jīvitindriya is, to my knowledge, I have not found, maybe there may be some suttas, but to my knowledge, it is not expressed as a cetasika. So in the Abhidhamma treatises, we find these two cetasikas also added to the universal cetasikas, universal mental factors, which is found in all the cittas. But if you go to the Sarvastivadi's Abhidhamma, they have different types of universal mental factors, and there are certain logics behind them. So in the Vibhanga Sutta, you find the 5 mental factors explained by the Buddha. When we come to Abhidhamma, where in the Theravada tradition, we find 7 mental factors which are universal to all the cittas. But when you go to Sarvastivadi doctrine of Abhidhamma, you find some new additions for this universal cetasika group based on different characteristics of the citta. Anyway, this is not a lecture going to discuss about the different traditions. We are only focusing on the Theravada tradition and how they explain that the doctrine of the Theravada based on their fundamentals. So we will be discussing now how these mental factors are essential for every citta to occur. So it's a very subtle topic to discuss. Some points will be will have to be explained in detail. But according to the Theravadins, they have tried to explain it how these factors are essential for all types of cittas to occur. The first one is phassa. Phassa is normally translated as the mental factor which touches the object. We normally translate this as contact. So here, contact or touching doesn't signify a physical contact like two hands touching each other. But this is a figurative type of a usage. It's a metaphorical usage. There is no such a physical touch which happening in the mental sphere. Because sometimes the citta can take objects which doesn't exist. Sometimes the citta can take objects that are not real. For example, in terms of Buddhist philosophy, if someone considers about an almighty God, this is an object that doesn't exist according to Buddhism. So if someone considers about such an object, this citta is taking an unreal object according to Buddhists. So therefore, in the Buddhist perspective, citta may take real objects, present objects, past objects, future objects which are not existing at the moment. At the same time, unreal objects, imagined objects, concepts, so various objects. So if phassa signifies the actual contact, the ability of citta to taking unreal objects is not possible. Because if the phassa requires actual contact, the object has to be existing always. So therefore we should note that the contact signified by the phassa is not a contact that we know in a physical manner. So this contact the name is given because there is no other way to explain it. Because this contact of phassa should be known in this manner. So when we want to take a certain thing into our hand, so before taking it, there should happen a certain type of a contact with the object. If there is no such a contact with the object, that thing cannot be taken into the hand. And if we want to eat something, that edible thing should come into our contact in our mouth. So likewise, regarding these actions, the objects should come into a contact with the specific person or the thing. In the same way, when we take the citta is cognizing an object. Sometimes we call it as taking an object. Arammana gahana in Pali. So we can sometimes casually translate as taking an object. So when the citta wants to take an object, like the hand needs to touch the thing before taking the object. In the same way, the citta has to touch the object. But normally when we take something to the hand, the touching happens first, then the taking happens. But in the mental sphere, this taking and touching happens at the same time. So because when the citta wants to focus on a particular object, having delimited it from other objects, at that time there should be a certain relationship or a contact with that particular object. This contact is what is explained as phassa. It's unexplained. It's not, when we just say touch, to our understanding it doesn't cover the meaning. So some theras suggest that if you want to understand phassa, know it as a mental element because of which the citta is able to know the object. I'll repeat that sentence again. Phassa is a mental element due to which the chitta is capable in cognizing an object. So phassa is a very difficult term to explain. So because of this, some have suggested that phassa is just a gathering of the three elements. But because the Buddha has specifically mentioned phassa, if you go into Anupada Sutta, he mentioned in the jhana, he was mentioning about separate mentalities, including chitta. Phassa, citta, vedanā. So it shows that he was referring this as a mental state, is a mental separate cetasika. So therefore, Theravadins consider it as a cetasika, not as a mere gathering of the elements, mere gathering of the realities. So, but still, it is a reality which is very difficult to be explained. So, in the suttas, Buddha explained phassa as a gathering. So, the Theravadians consider this statement given by the Buddha of Tinnam Sangati Passo, the gathering of the three, is how the phassa manifests. So, therefore, we have to explain what are the ways the realities has to be explained. Before going into that, I would like to read the paragraph, parts of the paragraph, 4.10.1. It means 10.1 paragraph. Contact is the mental factor which touches the object, hence called phassa. Aramanam pusatiti passo. The reality which touches or makes a contact with the object is called phassa, is the translation. The term touching and making a contact does not signify a physical contact. It is a metaphorical expression. When someone needs to take hold of a physical object, first he has to touch it with the hand. Only then the thing can be taken by the hand. In the same manner, for the consciousness to cognize an object, having delimited it from other various objects, there should happen a certain contact with the object. This contact is expressed as a mental factor in the Buddhist literature. Phassa should be known. This is the point I emphasize. Phassa should be known as a mental factor due to which consciousness become capable, or consciousness is capable in cognizing an object having taken it. Cognizing an object having taken it. Taken it means specially focused on the object, having delimited it from other objects. It is not a mere incident of a contact. It is a mental action. Moreover, it is essential for the act of cognizing an object, hence all the cittas are accompanied by phassa. So the function of all the cittas is to focus on an object, delimiting from others. Therefore, every citta should contact with this phassa. We normally say citta is a immaterial thing, but also we may say based on the object we cognize, the citta's largeness. Citta's largeness doesn't mean the material largeness. Some teachers have said that to explain the citta more clearly, the bigger the object is, more larger the citta is. But this largeness, they say, largeness of the citta should be, don't take it as a material largeness. Largeness of the citta should be understood based on the largeness of the phassa. Means how much the phassa touches the object, that much the citta knows the object. For example, if you take this pen can be known in an overall way. At that time, the citta knows the pen completely, phassa touches the whole thing. If the phassa touches only the clip of the pen, at that time the citta is capable of knowing only the clip of the cap of this pen. So likewise, the size of the citta is also, size doesn't mean this material size, the size in terms of the size of the object. Size of the citta also determines by size of the phassa. It means how much the phassa touches, that much the citta is capable of knowing an object. And also in some places teachers explain the strength of the citta is also based on the strength of the phassa. More the phassa is stronger, more clearer the citta is known. So likewise, phassa has a great influence to this citta, and it is an essential mental element for all the mental cognition. So if you go into suttas, mostly Buddha doesn't miss this mental concomitant. It's most in many cases, in few suttas where he explains the cetasikas, phassa is mostly found. So it is one of the main contributions to the mental cognition. So, but in the sutta, we still explain phassa as a separate mental element. But in a sutta, we find phassa has been explained as the gathering of the three elements. It means eye, visible form, and the eye consciousness, or the ear, sound, or the ear consciousness. Nose, odor, or the and the nose consciousness. So likewise, in the six senses, six doors, the Buddha has explained the phassa as tinnan sangati passo, gathering of the three. So Theravadians explain, they want to bring this explanation how to match it, because the phassa has been explained as a cetasika. At the same time, Buddha has explained it as a gathering of three things. Gathering is not an ultimate reality. For example, if we say these three things are gathered, only the three things exist and they come close to each other. Gathering is not an ultimate reality. It's just a gathering of realities. It's not a specific entity. So the Buddha explained phassa as a gathering of the three elements. So how to understand this without making it a paradox? Because in some suttas he mentioned it as a cetasika, it has a separate mental element. So the Theravadians explain there are 6 ways a mental reality can be explained. So I have given it this in the paragraph under the 4.10.1. So there are sub numbers. In the second paragraph under the contact, a point worthy highlighting at this place is the manifestation of phassa. An ultimate reality can be explained in 6 ways. First is Visesa Lakkhana. Visesa Lakkhana is in its intrinsic characteristic. Intrinsic characteristic means phassa has the characteristic of touching, patavi has the hardness, so forth. The Kicca Rasa. Kicca Rasa means in its function. We already know all the realities has a certain function. Then we have Sampatti Rasa. Sampatti Rasa has been explained in 3 ways. I found so far 3 ways it has been explained, because it's like different Paramattha Dhammas have been explained in different ways in terms of Sampatti Rasa. As the state attained with its function. Because a reality does a certain function, so when it performs the function, it attains a certain state. For example, the function of the kusala is to destroy or to suppress the akusala. So when the kusala has suppressed or destroyed the akusala, it attains the pure state. So therefore, the Sampatti Rasa of kusala is explained as the purity of the mind. At the same time, when you go into phassa, the commentary explains its Sampatti Rasa as the gathering of causes due to which the reality arises. Because phassa, the cause of the phassa is the gathering of the sense object and the sense organ. You can find this in the Paticcasamuppada. What is the cause of phassa? 6 senses. Salayatana, Paccaya, Passo. Just salayatana is not the cause for the phassa. Salayatana means internal bases and external bases both. So there are 6 groups of salayatana. Salayatana normally refers to 6 bases, but only the internal bases are not capable of bringing a phassa. So there should be external bases also. So these six groups, when they come together, then only the phassa happens. So therefore, Sangattana Rasa in the commentary, phassa Sampatti Rasa of phassa has been explained as the gathering of causes due to which the reality arises. And also a very renowned Sri Lankan scholar called Redukani Chandravila Mahathira, he explained that Sampatti Rasa as the ability of the reality to perform its function. So these are 3 definitions for Sampatti Rasa. But I find that all 3 are applicable to different ultimate realities. So these are very useful especially for the yogis in order to find the ultimate realities. Then we come to the next way of explaining Upatthānākāra Paccupatthāna. In the way it normally manifests to the observer. So when we observe something, sometimes these realities manifest not in their intrinsic nature, but in a certain manner. So phassa is explained in this way. To keep a note on it. The phassa in the sutta has been explained in the 4th manner. Then phalākāra paccupatthāna means referring to the result of a reality. Sometimes the reality can be explained looking at the result it brings. For example, fire can be referred at looking at the smoke in the likewise. Then we come to padatthāna vasena, referring to the cause of the reality. Manifestation of phassa associated with the eye consciousness is explained as the gathering of the 3 realities: eye sensitivity, visible object or color, and the eye consciousness. We find in a sutta, because if you take the phassa of the eye consciousness, the sutta goes for all the 6 types of phassas. So when the visible object has strike at the eye, there arises a chakku vijnana, we normally call eye consciousness. So together with it arises phassa. So this is eye, this is the visible form. So when we talk about the phassa in terms of paticcasamuppada, visible form and eye, their contact is the cause for the arising of phassa. That's why Buddha mentioned salayatana paccaya phasso. At the same time, if you go to the sutta found in the Saññā Nikaya, sutta found in the the Majjhima Nikaya, sorry for that, the Majjhima Nikaya, he explained that the gathering of, eye consciousness and the visible form arises, eye and the visible form, their gathering arises, when they come to clash with each other, arise the eye consciousness. So because of this visible form and eye, two bases, when they clash, in some places Buddha mentioned arises phassa, some places he mentions arises the cakkhu viññāna. So cakkhu viññāna is the mental element which knows the visible form. So for this mental element to know this visible form, as we already explained, it should have a certain contact with the phassa, with the visible form. Because the visible form has contacted here on the eye consciousness arises based on this eye, it means the cakkhu pasada. So it focuses, it knows this particular object which has arrived at here, which has struck on this eye base. So at that moment, this eye consciousness should also have a certain contact with this visible form, otherwise it will not be able to know it. I have already explained this point. At the same time, for this contact to happen, the main thing is the contact is also followed by this focus. Eye consciousness means the focusing on a particular object, delimiting this object from other objects. So therefore, when this phassa to happen also, there should be a certain focus towards the object. Therefore, phassa is greatly influenced, supported by the consciousness. Consciousness is greatly supported by the phassa. So they are mutually supporting. So we can say phassa supports the eye consciousness supports the phassa. They happen at the same time. So in the particular sutta, Buddha mentioned when the visible form and eye contacts, he didn't mention the phassa arise like cetasikas in the Paticcasamuppada. He mentions eye consciousness arises and their gathering is phassa. Gathering is phassa means when we want to focus on the phassa, it's not easy to understand this mental element. So what happened is, this phassa is known through the arising of eye consciousness. How do we know? It means if the hand takes something if someone takes something with his hand, it shows that this thing has been already touched by the hand. When we want to focus on the touch, what are the elements we understand? Touch means it has been already taken and the hand is found. So likewise, when we want to focus on the phassa, what it manifests is the three elements. So the gathering of three elements is the manifestation of phassa. Phassa is not easy to be understood directly. Therefore, Buddha explained tinnan sangati phasso. It means the gathering of three things is the phassa. If you go to the next page, we explain about this point. In the the bold letters in the first paragraph, this statement. So if I read the statement, chakkuncha paticca rupecha uppajjati cakkhu viññānam tinnan sangati phasso. Due to the eye sensitivity and the visible form, there arises the eye consciousness. And the gathering of these three is called the phassa. This statement, according to the Theravadis, does not indicate that phassa is just the mere gathering of three realities. It is another separate mental reality that has its own intrinsic characteristics, but expounded and easily understood in its manifestation. So that is the explanation of phassa. Now this is actually it's not at this moment already we mentioned how it is essential for the chitta. At the same time in this cetasika explanation, I'll be giving some extra information because chitta and cetasika are related as covering the next lectures also. Phassa in the next paragraph says, phassa is the fundamental mental act in a collective cognition. So when a collective cognition means all the chitta cetasikas focus on a particular object performing their functions, this phassa is explained as the basic or main fundamental reason. It is even a primary requirement for the consciousness, which is the forerunner in cohesive cognition. As said above, consciousness cannot focus upon an object, delimiting it from others, should there be no contact with the object. Therefore, in the ancient great Sinhalese commentary, Mahattakatha, phassa has been equal to a ground pillar upon which all the remaining parts of a building rests. All the mentalities, including consciousness, greatly depend upon the support given by phassa to their arising. It should also be noted that phassa too needs the assistance of consciousness to arise. So therefore, phassa and consciousness are dependent on each other. At the same time, we should know phassa is a very important, essential requirement for all the cittas to happen. So then we go to the next explanation, next cetasika, which is the feeling. So to explain this feeling, why it is necessary for all the cittas, we have to develop another theory. So in the few lectures ago, we mentioned about a phenomenal object based on which, observing the doctrine, we find that there is a phenomenon governing according to the Buddhist literature, there is a phenomenon governing the world, the existence of the world. In the same way, there is another phenomenon that we have to explain in order to find the essential nature of vedanā to all the cittas, and also vedanā, saññā, and most of the cetasikas. So this phenomenon, I would like to term it as phenomenon of effectiveness or efficacy or productivity. So these are the same phenomenon. I'll be using the three terminologies for the easiness. So these effective phenomenon or phenomenon of efficacy or productivity has to be understood. So this is also a very important phenomenon that is implicitly found in the explanations found in the Theravada doctrine, right? So what does this mean? We'll first explain about the vedanā. We'll just leave this phenomenon for a while. Before that, we'll go to the explanation of vedanā, and then we'll come to this point. So vedanā is also a mental factor greatly found in the Buddhist literature. Vedanā means tasting the flavor of an object. So when we want to explain about vedanā, we have to explain about the object in detail. According to the Buddhist teachings, each and every object has its own flavor. Because of this flavor, the objects have been divided into good objects, bad objects, pleasant objects, unpleasant objects, and so forth. So in the Buddhist teaching, we find piya rupam, sata rupam, pleasant objects. There are also asata rupam, the objects which are not pleasant. So why these definitions are there? Because objects have a certain intrinsic inherited quality which is called arammana rasa. The term is called arammana rasa. Arammana is the object. We normally call arammana is the object. Then we call arammana rasa, flavor of the object. So when the citta focuses on the particular object, in this collective cognition, there is a certain mental reality which becomes sensitive with this flavor of the object. So when I'll repeat again, citta focuses on the particular object, and also the remaining mental factors which arise together with it, focuses on this particular object and perform their functions. Among them, a certain mental reality experiences become sensitive with this flavor of the object. So based on this, for example, if the flavor of the object is threefold, some flavors are pleasant, some flavors are unpleasant, some flavors are neither pleasant nor unpleasant. So sometimes we may think, we also logical to think that the flavor of an object depends on how the person perceives. This idea is also accepted in the Theravada tradition. But that idea can be found in the level of javana cittas. Javana cittas means in our mind works in a process. There are certain cittas in which the volitional effect can be found. Like we make the decisions by ourselves. In these cittas, our preferences plays a huge role in determining object as pleasant or unpleasant. But in the mental process, there are certain cittas which are beyond the volitional effect. Volitional effect means there is no present volitional involvement in this citta. For example, the chakku viññāna. Jakku-vijñāna has no volitional, effortful involvement in the present moment for its arising. It happens because of the clashing of the objects. So these cittas we consider as vipaka cittas. And sometimes we have avajjana citta, which is a kriya citta. At this level, the volitional involvement is not stronger. So at that level, our personal preference doesn't play the role in determining the nature of the object. That is why in the Buddhist literature, Theravadians considered that every object has an inherited quality called a flavor by which the objects can be determined whether it's pleasant, unpleasant, or neither pleasant nor unpleasant. But when it comes to the volitional level of the citta, the javana citta, our preference play the role. It means a pleasant object can be known as an unpleasant thing, an unpleasant object can be known as a pleasant thing, depends on our culture, how we lived, and what are our preferences and sometimes our views and so forth. So therefore, this flavor of the object, according to Theravadians, is something inherited within the object. So when the collective cognition focuses upon an object, a mental element called vedanā experiences this flavor of the object. So then we also say experiencing this flavor is utterly necessary for all the cittas. And therefore, vedanā is a sabba citta sadharana cetasika, universal cetasika for all the cittas to happen. So how do we know why is a vedanā is essential for all the cittas? For that we go to the paragraph number 10.2.1 under the topic why is vedanā a vital factor for the arising of a citta. Consciousness is the act of knowing an object. The knowing merely done by the consciousness is the foremost act in the sphere of cognition. So in the collective act, the foremost and the basic act is the knowing an object done by the consciousness. However, cognition done by consciousness alone is of primary level, hence is not an effective act. The act of cognition done by citta reaches to the effective level only when it is associated by cetasikas. Cognition done by a consciousness and its associates is termed in this book as a collective or cohesive cognition. Actually, collective cognition is what really effective in our lives. In our lives, what is effective is the collective cognition, not the mere cognition done by the consciousness, based on which we do all sorts of physical, verbal and mental activities. All sorts of collective cognitions have some basic features which makes them effective activities. So they need to be effective. That is why in the beginning I wrote a explanation like phenomenon of effectiveness, phenomenon of efficacy, phenomenon of productivity. So what is this effective activities? Experiencing objects. So if you go to the note below this paragraph, it explains what is this effectiveness, what I mean. So if I give a explanation before reading, effectiveness means all the citta cetasikas which happens within beings are always productive. There are no citta cetasikas which are unproductive or ineffective. What does it mean? Normally we say citta never happens without saññā. Citta never happens without vedanā. So always some teachers looking into these details found in the doctrine, some teachers even have said that cittas doesn't arise without without a complete effective nature. It means normally say anarthakara citta. The cittas which doesn't have productivity doesn't happen. It means useless cittas. If some elements are missing, if the cittas productivity is gone, we can call it a useless citta. These types of cittas doesn't happen. So that is why in the Buddhist theory we come into conclusions that always vedanā, saññā, sankhara is a must in a citta. Why do we come into this idea? Because citta itself is the cognition. So if the cognition, if without saññā, without vedanā, can't it happen? The reason is, the Theravadians explain, because without it the citta is not effective. So what does it mean by effectiveness? So effectiveness means these collective cognitions become causes for certain acts. What sort of acts? If a citta arises, it should know the object well. Well doesn't mean with the wisdom. It should have a strong, correct grasping of the object and being aware of the object very well. Another act is supporting for the continuation of samsara, for the continuation of the mind stream. Some acts are like for the suppression of the kilesas. For example, we normally say the magga chitta arises cutting off the kilesas. So why do we say, and also we say, a magga chitta can never happen to arahant. Why is the reason? Why magga chitta doesn't happen to an arahant? Because there is no kilesa to be eradicated. So what does it mean? If a magga chitta happens, what does it mean? It has no effectiveness. It is not a productive chitta. So therefore, there is a certain phenomena, according to the Buddhists, that governs the mental sphere, which makes all the chittas to be effective, all the chittas to be productive or effective. So therefore, that is why we normally say, if someone asks us why this chitta is not possible, we sometimes say in the Theravada tradition, this chitta is not possible because it is out of use. A very good example is the magga chitta. If someone keeps on practicing vipassana again and again and as an arahant, why the magga chitta doesn't arise? Because there is no kilesa to be cut off. So if magga chitta happens, what happens? What is the fault? Because it is out of there is no use in this magga chitta. This magga chitta becomes useless. So chitta doesn't happen in such a way. So that is why I adapted this term, that phenomenon of effectiveness, phenomenon of efficacy or productivity. So that's some Abhidhamma scholars, a very special renowned scholar in Sri Lanka, Redukane Chandamula Mahatera, he gives a very nice statement. In Sinhalese he say, anarthakar sittupadinna. It means the chittas without an effect, chittas without an effective quality doesn't happen. So why does he say this? When you observe the doctrine in the Theravada tradition, you find there are certain rules that the scholars have adapted. Why do they adapt these rules? Because it shows that the Buddha has accepted such a phenomenon that if a chitta happens, it should have these basic characteristics. So also we find that certain chittas are prohibited. Prohibited means said as impossible to happen, because when the impossible chittas occur, even they doesn't perform any active contribution to this existence. So that is what is called the phenomenon of effectiveness. I will be discussing this in detail in the last lecture related to mentalities. If I read the notes below that paragraph, which is written in small letters, herein effectiveness means the state of being an act which performs certain functions and contributes for other acts, such as becoming well aware of an object, continuation of the samsara, accumulation of karma, and suppression and eradication of defilements. This effectiveness is found in all wholesome, unwholesome, and undetermined cognitive act. It's not only in the realm of wholesomeness when I say effectiveness. There is no collective cognitive act which does not attain the level of effectiveness, which is also known as the productiveness or productivity. This seems to be a very basic phenomenal law accepted by the Theravadins in advocating their doctrine. Henceforth, this phenomenon will sometimes be referred as the phenomenon of effectiveness, phenomenon of efficacy, or the phenomenon of productivity. I'll be using these terms, and we find that it's very this phenomenon is used in the Theravada doctrine to explain certain Dhamma points. So then what happens? If I keep on reading the next paragraph, in this regard, vedanā experiences the object in a whole, tasting its flavor. Tasting the flavor of an object due to which an object is classified either as pleasant, unpleasant, or neither pleasant nor unpleasant, is veritably experience the object in a whole. It means when the vedanā experience the flavor, we call the vedanā experience the whole object. Therefore, in the commentary literature, in terms of experiencing the object, within the act of collective cognition, vedanā is said to be like the king who enjoys the food completely, while all the other mentalities are like the cook who just tastes a part of the food. What does this information implicitly suggest? And there are some footnotes also. When in your leisure, please refer to them. What does this information implicitly suggest? Should vedanā be not present, the act of collective cognition is not effective. If the object is not known experiencing its flavor, that act of cognition is not a complete cognition in terms of the phenomenon of efficacy. Therefore, vedanā is a vital reality in the sphere of cognition. Since cognition done by consciousness is also for the effective fulfillment of the collective cognition, any reality that is requirement for the collective cognition is also a condition for the consciousness. So another point is, vedanā causes for the tanha. Because of tanha, the samsara continues. So we are talking about a phenomenon. So if someone asks a question, for example, this is a topic that I will be talking in the under the conditionality. If someone asks a question, why all these existence is happening? Why there is a samsara? First of all, why there is a citta? This is unexplainable in the Buddhist theory. Also, I think in the scientific field, if someone asks a question, why the gravity is always pulling the thing into this towards the earth, why always the two masses are dragging the things to themselves, if someone asks why it is happening, why instead of the gravity instead of towards the earth, why the rock didn't go to the other side, this is unexplainable. Normally, when we explain the theory, what is happening in the world, we try to explain it. We don't go to explain why this existence happened. These are the things that are unexplainable. In the same way, in the Buddhist doctrine, there is a limit that everything can be explained, even in the causality. So therefore, this phenomenon is something which cannot be explained, but it can be found. There's such a phenomenon can be found within the literature. So that is why I adapted this term, and some Buddhist scholars have discussed about this, not explicitly discussed, but they have hinted about such a phenomenon. So therefore, if vedanā causes for the tanha causes the continuation of samsara, should there be no vedanā, there is no possibility of tanha to happen. Because the reason is why beings are attached to this life, because this life has a certain taste, that is a flavor. Flavor means it's a nice thing. Why it becomes nicer? Because the objects are tasted by the vedanā. If the objects are not tasted, no one will be attached to this tanha, attached to this existence. So that's why Buddha say, if there is no asada, no one will attach to this samsara. So therefore, what does it mean? The vedanā, why vedanā is a must for all the cittas? Because it shows that if the nature is always the cittas happens in a certain manner, there is a certain law which governs. What are the foundations of this law? A certain mental cognition has to contribute to certain acts. One act is always cittas knows the object clearly. Clearly means in a full manner. Sometimes it may know wrongly or correctly. It doesn't imply here. It means it has a good grasp on the object. Some cittas all contribute to the continuation of samsara. When we develop the opposite force, that the magga citta goes against the samsara, destruct the kilesa. So likewise, there are certain contributions to certain acts. So there is no collective cognition that doesn't have this quality of effectiveness. So that is why we say vedanā, saññā, and those four are always present in every citta. So I'll be discussing this point, and also I would like to listen to your questions and explanations on this matter. Then we come to the perception. Perception is the saññā. Saññā is also a very important mental factor found in all the cittas. So how do we explain saññā? Saññā means when there is an object, when the citta focuses on an object, instead of ārāmana rasa, there is another unique qualities that are in every object. So we call it's lakkana. Here lakkana doesn't mean the visesa lakkana or saññā lakkana which are known with the wisdom. Here lakkana means its shape, it's sometimes its color and so forth. That the unique attributes, unique attributes of a certain object. When the citta focuses on a certain object, vedanā experiences the flavor. Saññā becomes sensitive to these unique characteristics, unique features of a certain object. So what happens? When the saññā knows another object, it becomes sensitive to the particular natures of that particular object. So what in the long run, what happens when the citta means separate different objects? It is capable to distinguish the objects from other objects. If the citta is not, if the saññā is not sensitive, if I say in the collective way, if the collective cognition is not sensitive to these unique features of these objects, what happens? collective cognitions will not be able to distinguish objects clearly. All the objects will appear to us in the same manner. So what happens? Effectiveness is lost. So therefore, we normally say every citta should have a saññā. If someone asks the question, why it should have a saññā? Unexplainable. Only it can be explainable through this phenomenon. Why? The Buddhists Buddhists suggest, the Theravadis suggest, implicitly suggest that every citta should be able to recognize the object. Why do we say that? Because all the cittas should come into this level of effectiveness. So that is the main rule that governs. So that is why they say saññā is a must. Otherwise, a person can directly ask, why saññā is a must? Why it is necessary? Why the citta should know recognize the objects clearly? We would say if it doesn't recognize, all the objects will appear to us in the similar manner. So there will be nothing we can do anything in the world, because there will be no distinguishing nature. Where the citta will not be able to distinguish, because the feature unique to this object is inherited in the object. Citta has to be sensitive to this uniqueness. Then why the citta is capable. We are capable to know this is this person and this is that person. So when the unique features are very similar, like twins, we are unable to distinguish it very clearly. So for example, if the mind is completely ignorant about these unique features, we will not be able to distinguish the objects clearly. So what happens? The effectiveness is lost. Effectiveness is lost means, because why do we say is effectiveness lost? Because there is a law of effectiveness. So because of the law of effectiveness, citta always arises in a manner, so therefore it should come into effective manner. So effectiveness means, that's why in the notes I mentioned, there are few pillars, there are few aspects that we have to note when we call about the phenomenon of effectiveness. Citta always contributes to certain actions, like knowing the object very well, clearly, and contribute to the continuation of samsara, and suppressing or destroying kilesas, accumulation of kammas. So these are the acts which govern this phenomenon of effectiveness. So therefore, in terms of effectiveness of the citta, phenomenon of effectiveness, saññā is a must in every citta. That is how only the possibility we can say why saññā is always found in the citta. So then, volition is also another point. Volition means cetanā. So when we say we also say the collective cognition. Cetasikas collectively cognizes an object. So in this cognition, if each and every mentality perform its own functions, for these mentalities to perform their function, execute their functions, there should be a certain power which supports these mentalities. So this power, this boost is given by the volition. So if the volition is not present, the volition is not there, the mentalities are unable to perform their functions. So therefore, volition, and then the citta becomes ineffective. So the volition is also must in all the collective cognizing acts. So then we come to the one, and also this volition is present in javana cittas. We feel that a volition or intentional attribute in the javana impulsive cittas. So and if we talk about the kamma, which I'll be dedicating few lectures for this topic. If this volition is done with a good objective, we call it a wholesome kamma. If this volition happens with a bad objective, we call it an unwholesome kamma. Then come to the one-pointedness. One-pointedness is called the ekaggatā. This ekaggatā means the citta has the function of knowing an object, delimiting it from others, but at the same time, this particular object which was so focused on can be known in different aspects. For example, if you take a bottle, this same bottle can be known as a container of water, an equipment that can be used for drinking water. If it is made out of glass, we may call it a glass object. So likewise, the same bottle can be known in various aspects. So when the citta delimits the object from others, if the citta, the collective cognition starts to focus on all these various aspects at the same time, it will not be an effective cognition. So therefore, the cognition has to focus on one particular aspect of a single object. So this focusing is called the ekaggatā. So all the collective mentalities, the cohesive mentalities are focused on one particular aspect by a certain power in the mind. This power is called as reality. So their Theravadins call is the ekaggatā. So it is also a universal cetasika for all the cittas. Then comes the life faculty. This life faculty means it is a cetasika which is found based on the continuation of the mind. We already discussed that the chitta continues one after another because of the power of the anantara, samanantara, paccaya. It means the force, we can call it the cognizing force, I'll do it in this way, of the previous chitta, cognition force. And also we mentioned at the moment of death, this, chitta, the force becomes weaker. So there should be two other additional forces, that kamma and kilesa in the defilements. So this is the anantara paccaya force and samanantara paccaya force. So these are the forces that causes for the continuation of the chitta in generations. So the Buddhists also add another force or another reality which contributes to this continuation. That is called jīvitindriya. When the chitta continues in this manner, perpetually rising and falling continuously till the attainment of parinibbana, Theravadins suggest that there should be a certain kind of reality which enhances the capacity of this mental stream to continue without stopping, because it's a long continuation. Chitta passes away as soon as it arises, but it keeps on happening. Why it happens? Because of these forces. And why it keeps on happens? Because at the death, because of the kamma and kilesa. If someone has eradicated kamma and kilesa, being arahat, his mental stream will stop completely. So in beyond addition to these two, they suggest that there is a faculty which enables, which strengthens the mind, each and every mind. So what happens? Their generation keeps on continuing without falling, without stopping. So therefore they suggest that there is a cetasika called jīvitindriya. This jīvitindriya is found in all the cittas. What is the function of jīvitindriya? It enhances the strength of each and every chitta. So because of this, the forces, these forces, anantara, samanantara, paccaya forces of a particular chitta is capable to bring another chitta. So because of these forces, the main reason for the chitta to arise this force, the cognitive force, it comes with the speed. So, but why that speed is capable to happen? Because this chitta is given life. Life means it is made stronger by the jīvitindriya cetasika. So this process keeps on happening. So that's why I mentioned that it increases the endurance. Endurance means the ability to continue till the attainment of final parinibbana. So therefore it is also considered as an essential element for all the chittas. It's not for, when you say the jīvitindriya, we should not consider it as the mainly its function can be found to the continuation of the mind stream. But rather than talking about each and every mind moment, there is a contribution with the jīvitindriya according to Theravadins, but the greatest contribution is given by jīvitindriya to continue for the chitta, to arising again and again. So therefore, in each and every arising, jīvitindriya is a supporting factor. Then we come to the last cetasika, attention, manasikāra. Manasikāra is also explained as chitta having cognized an object passes away. When it passes away, it gives up the object. And again another chitta arises taking the same object. For example, if a bhavanga chitta proceeds, it takes the same object again and again. If a new object comes to our mind, the mind keeps on going in that same object in different vittis. So therefore, when the chitta passes away completely, leaving the giving up the object, what is the reason for another chitta to suddenly happen, taking that same object? If an object differs when an object has struck in the doors, that is a outside cause. When an outside cause has come, the mind takes a new object. Otherwise, always mind takes the object which was taken by the previous chitta. Or then, if that object is, the effect of the new object is gone, if it is ends, and again the chitta takes the same object which was taken by the previous bhavanga chittas. So likewise, this chitta keeps on taking a similar object again and again, even after it passes away momentarily. The reason is, with each and every chitta, when it arises, there is a certain mental quality which makes the chitta, which charges the chitta to take that same object. So this is called the manasikāra. Because of manasikāra, chitta happens to take the same object which has been abandoned by the previous chitta. So these are the 7 mental factors that are necessary for every chitta to happen. So they are also vital conditions for all the chittas to occur. The last condition is called the base. Base means the vatu. In the panchavokara realm, always chitta need the support of a rupa. This rupa is called base, vatu rupa. Because chitta is an immaterial element, so it cannot sustain alone. But so therefore, rupa in the panchavokara realm, except the 4 arupa realms and the asaññā where chitta doesn't exist. So chitta is always supported by a rupa. And also we explain in the Pottapada Sutta, and based on the vijnana titi, it's very clear to us that there are certain, according to the Buddha's teaching, there are certain realms that are without a rupa. Because last time I explained, based on the vijnana titi, if you analyze this list very carefully, you find there is a realm without saññā, asaññī, and there are 4 realms advocated without the rupa. So these realms are called the arupa realms. In the arupa realm, the chitta exists without the rupa. So how should we understand this? The chitta, the chitta which cannot exist in the panchavokara realm without a rupa, how can it exist in the arupa realm? It's because of the development of the meditation. When the mind is developed, the capacity of the mind is enhanced through the high concentration. The new life given with this kamma, this arupavachara kamma, is capable, in that life the chitta is capable to sustain without a rupa. So that the whole life, the chitta in this whole life is, affected, is produced by the kamma which gave the rebirth, because they are all the effects of this kamma, even though they are kusala chittas are there, because of the initial the patisandhi, these all things happen. So there is a great influence of the kamma. So this kamma is a kamma that has been developed with high concentration. So, and also the mind has been detached to the rupa. So because of these reasons, the new life without a rupa, in the new life, in the arupa realm, chitta can sustain without a rupa. Otherwise, in the panchavokara realm, chitta always needs the support of the rupa. So these are the points that I want to emphasize in this lecture. I mainly emphasize how these 7 cetasikas are supportive for all the chittas, and also highlighted about certain phenomenon you can find in the fetch out from the Theravada tradition, which I termed as the phenomenon of effectiveness, phenomenon of efficacy or the productivity. So based on which this contribution of all the 7 cetasikas to all the chittas can be explained. And not only that, I'll be discussing about this point in the further lectures as well. Then we also found the base is a primary factor, fundamental factor for all the chittas in the panchavokara realm. So these 2 lectures, if I compile, we discuss about the Nāma, we discuss about the definitions of Nāma, we discuss about the 2 types of cognitions, that the cognition merely done by the chitta and the collective cognition, and then we come into chitta and vijnana, which are the phenomena of the consciousness, and the various aspects that these 2 terms imply. And then we talked about the conditions of the chitta. In the conditions, we discussed about the anantara samanantara pacchaya force, which was given by the previous chitta, and the continuation of chitta in generations, how according to the Buddhism, Theravadins, how there cannot be a first chitta. And then we discussed about the contribution of certain cetasikas, 7 cetasikas, to all the chittas. And then in there we talk about the certain phenomenon, and also finally we talk about the contribution of bases to the chittas in the panchavokara realm. So if you have any questions, yes, we have a question.
Page 8. Opening the 10.1.3.
Right.
Open 1.3.
10.1.2, yeah. 3. Sampatti rasa.
Yeah. There are 3 kinds. What is the difference between the first one and the third one? Please explain this example.
First one and the third one.
Yes.
At the moment I am unable to give a direct example. So if I explain the true meaning, the essential state attained with this function is because of performing the function, for example, kusala dispel the akusala, because it gets a certain purity because of this. So then the third explanation is the ability of the reality to perform it. It's a different. I found it's a paccaya sati, something like that. So why the reality is capable of performing this action? So I need time to find an example for this. So this was taken from different books about how the teachers have explained. Yes.
In the set of the object, at the beginning, when we set up the object as one object and collectively the object of the same nature. Not in the later, but they said that if we take Nāma and Rupa as the saññā and as one object, but at that time, it's not mostly the first one we collectively set the object to the same nature because Nāma and Rupa they have the different nature. So I want to ask.
So what is Ashu asking is, I mentioned that when we say citta has a one object, then we say the two types of object, just a single object and a group of objects which share similar characteristics. And also I mentioned if it is just Nāma and Rupa, your mind cannot focus it clearly because Nāma and Rupa have completely different types of characteristics. And also I mentioned Nāma and Rupa can be collectively taken as saññā. So in that sense, we are not focusing on the Nāma Rupa attribute. We are focusing on the conditioned attribute. So whether it's citta or rupa, whatever reality which is produced by the conditions is collectively taken as saññā. So therefore, in that collective object, the shared attribute is the conditioned nature, not the Nāma nature and Rupa nature. That is why I mentioned it. So okay, then time has passed, so we will meet on next Sunday. The lectures on the mentality will continue.